This is going to be a fairly informal meeting. I don't want to make it so we're just kind of talking at everyone, but I know that there are a lot of people, so having us all talk at once could be a little chaotic. But anytime that you want to talk, just definitely feel free to include it in the chat. And then if there's time, we definitely want people to just be able to unmute themselves. So we're not the only ones talking. So yeah, I guess we can get started. Nicole, if you don't mind sharing the agenda.
All right, hold on. I thought you were doing that. Got it. Can you see it? I'm a bit of a novice at Zoom.
That's great. I put the task on Nicole last second.
All right. Do you want the map or should I just do it full screen?
Full screen is fine for now. I think we'll go over the map in like the area saturation section. All right, awesome. So welcome everybody. It's 10 after 5, I think, or 10 after 6 now. So I think this will be a nice time for us to get started. And with great pleasure, I'd like to introduce Sylvia.
Hey, thanks, Christy. So I'm Sylvia Kelly. I am the new State Policy Manager for the Field and Fork Network. And I'd just like to speak briefly to our advocacy goals for 2022 and 2023, as well as our coalition building goals. Our main advocacy goal at the state level is to secure state funding. We are currently federally funded with a match contribution from private donors, local funding and grants that we have managed to secure. However, we do believe that to expand and strengthen the program in the way we want to, it is necessary for us to be a recurring part of the state budget. So our primary advocacy goal is to get a $2 million appropriation in the state budget in either 2022 or 2023 fiscal year. And as far as coalition building, our main goal is to try and create and strengthen a coalition of participating groups, agencies, and community organizations or nonprofits, even block clubs or churches or interested individuals that can advocate on behalf of the Double Up Food Bucks program to secure that state funding. Okay. And I will pass it to Christy and Brian to talk about our expansion and area saturation.
All right, awesome. Thanks, Sylvia. So in terms of also just to kind of add on to what Sylvia said, this is kind of an all hands on deck kind of situation. So if anybody's interested in kind of helping us with the advocacy side of things, or knows anybody who can or wants to help with that kind of thing, we're planning on having coalition meetings frequently. What's the name of the group that we keep? It's just Double Up Food Bucks Alliance, right?
So currently our working name is the Double Up Food Bucks Alliance. Okay. And we will be looking to start having meetings for that in mid-spring, so that we can figure out a better way for us to all be involved in the push to secure state funding, as well as making sure that our local representatives at a state level are aware of our needs and concerns in our communities.
Mm-hmm. And that also, in addition to it being a state project, it's also, it's listed here, but local and county funding as well. So it all helps, right? And yeah, I guess I can kind of, so expansion and area saturation is kind of going in tandem with the state funding. This is something that we're always working toward. And what I mean by area saturation is also that we are trying to focus on like specific areas and having multiple locations in each identified area. So really we want to be able to have something within 5 miles of like a year-round site within 5 miles of every seasonal site. So really making sure that we're having the ability to serve people year round in a diversity of ways. So we want to be able to really create more of a more robust double up food box system. And then, yeah, I think we're also, actually, Nicole, this would be a really great time to share that map. So we created a map that shows all of the places where we are, the amount of sites in each county, and then the areas where we're looking for expansion. So whenever we're thinking about expansion, the idea of having year-round and seasonal sites is really important. But obviously it's not really possible for us to identify these places without the help of all of you amazing people. So if there's ever a time where you know that there's a gap that needs to be filled with double up food bucks, please feel free to let any of us know. And then I'm going to pass it over to Brian. Brian, if you could also introduce yourself. And then Francis, I think everyone pretty much knows who you are, but if you could also introduce yourself, that would be amazing.
Yeah. Hi, all. So most of you know me. I'm Brian. I'm the site coordinator with Field and Fork Network. So if any of you all have ever had any issues and run any of our sites, you've probably worked with me before. But just to kind of add onto what Christy said, just because as we are expanding, we do rely heavily on our partners for identifying sites. It's tough for us. We don't ever want to kick down doors in communities and kind of tell we can't come into your community and identify a great site. You guys, it's your community. It's going to be kind of left up to y'all. And something that we really look for when people are tossing sites, I know Eugene, you're on this call. You hooked me up with Fred from, what is it, Haven for Humanity or whatever it is in the Catskills. I'm sorry if I'm messing up the name, a couple of weeks ago. And whenever we're looking for potential sites, it's something to always remember and just kind of recognize that this program doesn't operate well unless these sites want the program. We've run into issues in the past where we have partners where their intentions are wonderful, but they really want to just kick down the door of this corner store and tell Joe shop owner to run the program. The program will fall flat on its face if people don't have buy-in. So whenever y'all are out there, if you do want to help us identify partners or places where we can start getting our program in your community, just please keep in mind that it doesn't work unless they really, really want it. You don't want to have to coax someone into it too well.
Thanks, Brian. And then Francis, I know everyone probably knows who you are, but just in case that there's anybody who doesn't.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. I think maybe there are a few people on here that I don't know actually, but my name is Francis. I am the program manager for the Double Up program. And I'm not saying anything on the agenda today, but I'm just really grateful that all of you are here. And we as an organization are just incredibly grateful to have such amazing partners. So this is a great, I love that everybody's here today. And I'll pass it right back to you, Christy.
Thanks. And yeah, I know Francis isn't technically having a point on it, but I wanted to make sure that everybody knew her because she's she's our manager. She's the driving force behind making sure that the program does well and is able to expand. And then I do want to reemphasize, Eugene just put a thought in the chat. So if anybody has any ideas for anything that we've been talking about or any questions, please feel free to utilize the chat. I get tired of hearing my own voice sometimes, believe it or not. And then with that, if you want to share the agenda again, this will be a time for Nicole and I to talk about outreach and how much we want to improve program recognition for Double Up Food Bucks in everywhere that we are and everywhere that we aren't already. I feel like there's often kind of a gap between where we are and the people who know about the program. So making sure that we're better able to utilize that. And that's going to be a really big part for our relationships with everybody here on this call. Making sure that we're able to better understand the communities that we're in, being able to make sure that we are more effectively communicating what the program is, what it does, who we are, who you are as our partners, because, you know, this type of work, especially with food security and food access, is so multifaceted. It's not just a food issue, it's a health issue, it's a waste issue, it's across the board. So making sure that we all understand that we're all together and we're all kind of putting the messaging out based on what the community needs and wants. It's a really big part of why we're creating communication changes. And obviously having our amazing new communications manager on our team is really helpful. So Nicole, I'm going to pass it over to you. You can also introduce yourself.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Nicole Borchard. I am the Communications and Partnerships Manager for the Field and Fort team, as well as the Double Up program. I probably don't know most of you, and I thought it would just also be helpful, since you guys do know Christy, to kind of give you how we work together. Obviously, we're a small team, so we're super close, but for me, my role is really focused on sort of creating larger scale partnerships, whether that's in a particular region or across the state, and looking at partnerships that sort of can impact our overall organization. Where Christy is obviously highly focused on the Double Up program, but also more sort of localized and doing the grassroots efforts. I would be putting together maybe larger scale events that is bringing in multiple partners, getting media attention around that. And Christy would be kind of out there, I think, you know, hitting the field and coming to, you know, health fairs that you might have, or just different local opportunities. So that's sort of how we differ, but we're also working probably on every little initiative together. You know, since we do have both of us now, we really do want to sort of create more consistent communication with all of our partners, and have an opportunity for all of us to share and collaborate, and not have sort of these one-off meetings or when an idea pops in our head. So I think that's one of our goals for this summer. I also am putting out a newsletter, and I really do want to highlight the partners that we have. If you guys have new programs or initiatives that you're working on, I would love to include them in our newsletter, or, you know, share them on social media. I mean, we really want to tap into the sort of network part of our name and start to connect everyone and share information and the great work that you guys are doing too. Just sort of a little food for thought for this summer, something that I do want to work on. So if this piques anyone's interest, is kind of a series that either can be shared on social media or on, you know, our websites, is Snap Stories, and kind of telling different Snap stories from the various regions and how STAP has impacted people's lives in different ways. So that's something that I'm going to be kind of fleshing out later, but just an idea. And that's kind of who I am. And I hope to get to know all of you better over the next coming months. Thanks.
Awesome. And then, so there's two other things that I'd like to really introduce as well. Well, one part of that change is also going to be hopefully us being more on the ground in places where we aren't really already. For example, I am in Schenectady right now and doing some scouting for different areas and trying to meet with our local partners to just kind of identify different things that we can do. Headed down to Westchester this afternoon to kind of make sure that we have a presence there. So if there's ever a time where it makes like more sense and you've identified a few places, I know there's people on the call who have, and that's literally why we're here. If there's anything that you've recognized as an area that really needs it and we're not there, we'd love to kind of figure out a way to bridge that gap and start to create those relationships. Because as you know, to beat a dead horse a little bit, the relationships and the partnerships that we have are everything for this program. And then I'm going to introduce one of the other members of our team. He is working on the Niagara Falls Local Food Action Plan and a lot of other things. So Tom, if you could take a moment to introduce yourself. I feel like there's a lot of people here who would be inspired by your work and want to hear more about you.
Sure. Thanks, Christy. Good morning, everyone. My name's Tom Lowe. As Christy said, I'm a project director with Field and Fork Network, focused on the Niagara Falls Local Food Action Plan. So while kind of the rest of the team is really going statewide and bringing double up food bucks to every part of the state, I'm very hyper focused on the city of Niagara Falls and implementing this local food action plan thing that we really published back in 2018 and kind of launched the implementation of over the last few years. So, just in quick, we're kind of implementing a few projects right now. We have a workforce development project that we're working on with high school seniors to expose them to careers throughout the food system, to kind of hopefully create a pipeline or show them what those career pathways look like. We're working on a healthy corner store project in the city of Niagara Falls, trying to launch healthier food items in corner stores. I think we saw as a result of the pandemic that people wanted to get to stores quickly, get their food and kind of get home. So bringing those healthier items as local as possible, neighborhood based as possible, is something we're focused on. And then we have one farmers market in the city of Niagara Falls that we just launched SNAP at. So for the first time ever, our farmers market accepted SNAP starting in September of last year. So kind of a big deal. And in the 2 months that it was there, did pretty well, over $4,000 in SNAP sales. And I think it was like an 89% redemption rate on tokens. So the hope is for 2022 for Double Up Food Bucks to show up in Niagara Falls finally, and at our farmers market there, and then also have opportunities at some of our corner stores for Double Up as well. So happy if this local food action plan thing ever resonates with you and your communities. I'm happy to share. I know I talked to our friends at 80K Action at one point about the local food action planning process. I'm happy to share that with anybody or any of the work we're doing in Niagara Falls. Always love talking about it. Thanks, Christy.
Awesome. Thanks, Tom. And then this program that I'm going to introduce is very close to my heart. I'm the project director for this for the Americorps Vista program. And we have two incredible Americorps Vista members. They're Jennifer Stanton and Shannon Klein, who are both on this call. And I'd like them to kind of talk a little bit about the work that they're doing, what Americorps Vista is, and just kind of the goal of it in general. And then I'll kind of wrap up that. So Jennifer, I'm going to pass it over to you.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for being here this morning. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Jennifer, and as Christy said, I'm one of the Double Up Food Bucks Americorps Vistas. I'm located up in the Adirondacks in Essex County, and the Americorps Vista program stands for Volunteers in Service to America, and it's a one-year program where you're placed at a local site. And I think Christy said it best last week, your goal is to work yourself out of a job. I'm here to capacity build and just help with our vendors as much as I can. So I think as Tom just said too, I'm located at 80K Action in Keysville, and my area of focus is in Clinton and Essex County. And 80K Action also has their own program that pairs pretty well with Double Up Food Bucks. You can see it in the upcoming newsletter from that link that Nicole shared in the chat. But fair food pricing is focused on local food equity in the local food system and working with vendors to help them overcome barriers and utilize nutrition incentive tools at their site. And so that's a little bit of what I do, both with Double Up Food Bucks, SNAP at farmers markets, and fair food pricing. I've also done some training and operations manuals, and I do a little bit of like direct capacity building with some of our vendors up here. So I go in and work with some of their employees and make sure they're trained in Double Up Food Bucks reporting and local food procurement and things of that light. I've also done some surveying and analysis for both Fair Food Pricing, 80K Actions program, and Double Up Food Bucks, including some asset and SNAP mapping. I've also put out my own local food newsletter focused on Clinton and Essex County, and look forward to keep doing that. In the future, we're looking forward to some volunteer recruitment and management to help our capacity at our local vendors. And I'll be focusing on the Keysville Community Garden this summer. And so definitely looking for some local Keysville residents who may not have room to garden otherwise. But if there's anything I can do, if any of the vendors on this call or partners on this call are located up here, I did drop my email in the chat, but you're welcome to reach out to me at any point in time. And I'll pass it off to Shannon, who's a lovely one. So.
Thank you for that introduction. Can everybody hear me? Okay. I'm Shannon Klein. I'm the Double Up Food Bucks Outreach Coordinator based in Tupper Lake. My local site is Health Hub. I forget what her official name is. We call it the Hub. The Health Hub Eatery in Tupper Lake. And I work with Cherie Witten. And we're mainly focused on building access to, vendors for Double Up Food Bucks and access to those vendors for our very rural and spread out county. I'm focused mainly on Franklin County and working closely with also St. Lawrence County. There's some partners on here that are wonderful. You know who you are. And so I'm identifying places we can bring in new Double Up Food Bucks sites, and also trying to help with the Hub's ability to not only, they've been providing Double Up Food Bucks access at their site, but I think there's a lot of ways we can do more just to bring in more traffic in general, in an effort to build local food security in our area, which is otherwise a food desert. There's very few food vendors of any kind in our area, let alone local food. Also a new big exciting project that my local site, Witten Family Farm, and the Health Hub Eatery is working on is a local composting route, because we've participated in some other composting routes before, and there's really a lot happening in our neighbor state in Vermont that's not too far from us. But we don't really have anything local. And so now that that's newly mandated at the state level, we need to have more local farms participating in the composting. So that's sort of a sidestep, but at the same time, it's helping to close the loop in local food security, not directly related to Double Up Food Bucks. So I have identified a few new potential sites that I hope to bring Double Up Food Bucks in, and just helping the farmers markets and local food vendors be their strongest possible. If you have questions, let me know. My email's in the chat, and I'd love to get to know more of our partners. Thank you.
Thanks, Shannon and Jennifer. Yeah, so that's our Americorps Vista team so far, and they're just couldn't be happier. Couldn't be happier with our team. So one of the other things about Americorps Vista is we are currently in the process of trying to identify new host sites for Americorps Vista throughout the state. So really identifying different places where we can have people almost as good as Jennifer and Shannon able to kind of work on capacity building for, different markets, different areas, just making sure that the area is well aware of Double Up Food Bucks, and we're able to kind of alleviate some of the other pressures that go along with food insecurity. So that actually is everything in our agenda, which is exciting considering now we have 30 minutes to talk about what you're doing, and we can talk about, or we can address any questions that anybody has, any ideas that anybody has, if anyone's interested in any specifics about anything that we mentioned. Carlene did ask a question in the chat, and I'm sorry we didn't address it, but she asked how will getting state funding for Double Up Food Bucks affect Fresh Connect that is already state funded. So I'm gonna actually pass that one off to Sylvia, since she is our advocacy manager. So
So I think that's a great question. As we all know, there are already several other state-funded programs that address different areas of food security throughout New York State. We have Nourish New York, we have Fresh Connect, and these are also really good programs that are doing important work. Our hope is that getting state funding for our program will continue to allow us to grow our capacity, which in turn will ease some of the current pressures that are on other programs and allow each of those programs to do what it is that they do best. So for example, Nourish New York helps connect people with healthy produce at food banks. If we get state funding, hopefully that will alleviate some of the pressure on food banks. Fresh Connect is another SNAP supplemental program that helps people access produce at grocery stores, farmers markets, mobile markets. They have a slightly different model than we do, and that I believe shoppers are given monthly stipends. I'm not sure if those carry over month to month the way that our additional funding does. However, we're hoping again that by easing the overall burden of food insecurity and food access in our states, these programs will allow each other's space to grow and strengthen, and hopefully we will all be better and rise together because we have the funding we need to make the difference we need. And back to you, Christy.
Awesome. And then, yeah, thanks, Sylvia. So does anybody have any comments, questions, concerns, ideas? We are really trying to find ways to not just improve the Double Up Food Bucks program, but we are really trying to figure out how to better support all of our partners. Carlene, yes.
Yeah, so I have another question, and Sylvia, thank you for answering that, because you're right, there are a lot of different incentive programs, and so I want to make sure that what best fits for the community works. So my second kind of question is that I've seen that some winter farmers markets have been able to use Double Up Food Bucks, and of course retail can use it year round. In the past, summer markets are only able to use Double Up, start issuing it in July. Here in St. Lawrence County, we have two of our main big markets that start mid-May. And I'm wondering, can we begin that earlier? And there may be other markets around the state that also, I understand the concern about having product available at those, but if there's potentially product at retail locations of local food, then there could be potential product at these farmers markets. We're missing out strawberry season, for example. So I'm just bringing that up to the team for thought.
Yeah, I think, Carlene, we agree with you fully. I mean, I would just echo everything that you just said. I think that one of the reasons that we are advocating for more funding, but that's one of the big reasons that we would like more funding, is to enable us to stretch the season out a little bit more. We've talked internally about it, and I think that's one of our long-term, if not short-term goals, is to extend the length of the season. But I think that the only way that becomes really realistic for every site is if we do get a substantial amount of funding to support the incentive for those months. So I think all the reason to advocate for funding. But yeah, I think it's definitely something that we're thinking about internally really seriously, and how we can make that happen in the future.
And then there was another question in the chat. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Carlene. Thank you, Andrew, for this question. So how does a farm or institution participate in Double Up Food Bucks? What's the process? I'm going to pass it to Brian.
Yeah, so right now we're still working on finishing up our application for seasonal markets, but every year, every site has to reapply. It's just a way for us to make sure addresses and everything are up to date and we get everything that we need so we can kick it to Congress for all of our reporting and everything. So if it's a farm site, we'll have an application that'll go live. And if you have anyone interested, you can send their information over my way and I can put them on our little email list. I got a whole list going for all of our seasonal sites that are going to start up, and I'll be shooting the application to them. If it's a year-round site and you want to put them in connection with me, we have a separate application for that. And that's more of your like brick and mortar retail locations, year-round farm stands, anything like that. You can have them reach out to me. We normally, right now, while we're not in the middle of the season and everything, we like to have a little chat first, make sure the program be viable at their store and whatnot. And then if everything seems like it's going to look good, they're a good candidate for the program. We can get them applied, get all their information forward, and then touch base and train them on the program, get everything set up. It's a pretty simple process of just filling out an application. It is a little bit lengthy. We do need things like your historic SNAP sales over the past 5 years or however many years you've had it, if it's less than 5. But once you get us all that information, we can pretty much get you going, however fast we can train you.
Awesome. Thank you, Brian. Would you mind putting your email in the chat for me?
Of course.
Thank you.
Eugene, what can we do for you? What you got?
Everyone hear me okay?
Yep.
Cool. Yeah, I got to switch audio between my speaker and my phone. So I want to know a little bit about like strategy for getting state funding. Are we trying to identify double up food bucks in the governor's budget, and we're going to then be targeting our local legislators to get some buzz in Albany? And if so, would a video explaining why double up food bucks program is more enticing than Fresh Connect? So like, what do you guys envision the strategy of going forward to get? Is it a line item in the budget? You know, like what's the strategy?
So currently we're not a line item in the budget. We are not a part of the budget yet. And we would really, like we said, like to change that. Since right now we do have some movement on that front in the assembly. We have an Assemblyman Meeks from Rochester, who has put forward a letter advocating for our inclusion in the budget that's currently circulating the assembly, seeking sign-on from other members of the assembly so that it can be submitted to the financial committee and the governor's office to advocate for our inclusion in the assembly budget. We also are currently scheduling meetings with different members of the New York State Senate to try and get a similar sign-on letter circulating through the New York State Senate. And our hope is that if we can get both the Assembly and the Senate to present the governor with sign-on letters from various members of both houses of legislature, that will make a compelling case for our inclusion. But obviously, we also feel that having, hearing from their constituents, hearing from farmers, hearing from organizations will sway members of the Senate and Assembly to take action and to be more willing to advocate for us and push for us to be in the governor's budget. So a very long answer is we are currently seeking sign-on from members of the Senate and the Assembly to submit for our inclusion in the governor's budget. And yes, we are envisioning that different kinds of participation, advocacy, maybe video testimony, maybe scheduling meetings, virtual or in person, with members of the Assembly and Senate, perhaps having phone banking days through our community organizations could all be viable strategies for getting that attention we need to keep pressure on our legislative members, to keep pressure on the governor.
Nice. When you have those letters for the Senate and the Assembly, can you forward them on, and then I can set up meetings with the two people that are in my region that have sway? Because I know the two senators for Sullivan and Ulster County, Martucci and Hinchy. So yeah, that would be great.
Absolutely. If you guys want to, and like Christia said, if these are efforts that you want to be looped in on when we reach the phase where we are using like community voices to kind of advocate for these ways, please share your email, sign up on the listserv that Nicole dropped, and we will absolutely be sharing these out with you guys so that you know what's happening and you can be included as much as possible to really speak to like how great these programs are and how much need there is for them.
I have another question too, just for like information gathering and just understanding more about what's going on at the local farmers market. It's a little off topic. I mean, I'm a farmer. I go to the farmers market every week. And I'm just wondering if anyone on this call has heard of local farmers comparing prices to the grocery stores, and if like, what are they planning on doing, and any percent increases, like for instance, the farmers, near the New York City area who go to New York City frequently are basically at the start of the season just doing a blanket increase of 25% across the board. And I'm wondering if that's something that is being seen in other parts of the state.
I'm not sure. Can anyone answer? No one. I mean, that's definitely worth looking into.
I could maybe add a little bit. I don't know all the answers, but I know the site that I work at, the Health Hub in Tupper Lake, Cherie Witten is the owner of the business, and also she's the farmer, and she's going to farmers markets. And I know she's struggling to keep her prices down. She is looking at some price increases for this season, but I don't think it would be 20%. And so part of that, she's looking very closely at getting the municipal contracts for the mandated composting in an effort to reduce her inputs that she's buying in for her farm. So she's looking at ways. I mean, she's expanding, and or I don't know what a business word is for looking at all the ways that she can be doing more on her own farm instead of buying in amendments for her soil and whatnot. It's hard. The prices are going up. She's looking at higher costs for everything for her inputs this year. Does that begin to answer any of your questions, Eugene? I forget the other part of your question.
No, I'm just wondering, I mean, like, for instance, just for information and everyone knowing, the little plastic 8-ounce containers, farmers and producers yesterday were marking about how they're about 50 cents a piece. So when you buy, a product in a plastic container, you're basically paying 50 cents for the container. And yeah, it is pretty awesome that, we have the composting situation going on. I have a compost heap started with small producers, because it's 4 tons a month, and then you don't need DEC regulations. Right after 4 tons a month, then you have to start playing with DEC, which is so fun.
Yeah, she's going big. Cherie's dream for the compost. She's going to get the municipal contracts. We're going to do it. And I think if anyone can, she can. And she's got it all worked out. So I'm eager to see where it goes. The cost, you're right. So we save so much cost because people bring their own packaging. It's very farm stand style. You show up and get a box if you didn't bring something with you. It's not, we don't do packaging and labels. It's like, it was picked this morning and you take it or leave it.
Yeah, it seems like the prices always go up and they never go back down, right? So hopefully we can all work together and create a solution, but I don't know. So I guess, does anybody have any thoughts, ideas, questions, or anything? Or I do want to make these kinds of conversations happen more often, just because I know, I think our program does seem to be changing a lot more often these days, especially as our team keeps growing. So I want to make sure that everybody kind of stays in the loop. And I want to also, kind of transition these meetings a little bit more to find ways that we can better support our partners, rather than just expecting all of you to just constantly support us. So finding ways to like really put the network back in the field, or in the Field and Fork network, making sure that we're able to connect everybody with organizations across the state that are doing similar work, or sometimes even, organizations that are doing similar work in other parts of the country, because we do have a pretty vast network, as for being a Double Up Food Bucks administrating site or organization. So yeah, is this something that people would be willing to participate in again? Was this something that everybody would be willing to participate in again? That's just my first question. It would be less us introducing ourselves and our programs and more just kind of getting into the weeds about it. And like what we can do. Awesome. Seeing some yeses. And then I guess we can use like reacts for this. It's like a voting system. I have it on the grid. So if people, I think, is this something we want to do quarterly? If you like quarterly, if you could do like a thumbs up, or if you want to do like twice a year, maybe, I don't know, heart. So thumbs up for quarterly and heart for, okay. I'm seeing a bunch of quarterlies. Awesome. Okay, cool. All right, sweet. So I think, yeah, I like quarterly too. I think this will be a really great way for us to, instead of us talking, if anybody, like I'll send out information about kind of what our goals are for the next meeting. And then if anybody has anything that they would want to talk about at that time and like share their work, and then just kind of give us an opportunity to really just highlight each other, and making sure that we're strengthening our own networks. Cool. So I'll be working with our team internally for that. Again, like I mentioned, I did get an email. So thank you, Mara, about interest in Vista. So if anybody else is interested in learning more about it, or potentially hosting an Americorps Vista member, and be happy to talk with you. As you heard, our team is already doing some really cool work. And yeah, I think that's it. Does anybody have, oh, and I had one more question. Would everybody be comfortable with with us compiling a contact sheet with name, organization, email, and sending it out for the entire group? So we can, and like a building on it over time for these meetings, just to make sure that everybody can contact each other if need be. All right, I'm seeing a lot of yeses. This is great. All right, cool. So that's definitely going to be something that we work on as well. And I think we could probably sign off a little early unless somebody else has anything that they really want to share. Any ideas for moving forward, any ideas for our team, or just something that they think is interesting that they'd like to talk about. Has anybody heard any good jokes lately? I'm always like a sucker for a good joke. All right. Well, I'll end it with one that my brother told me recently, which I thought was very cute. Has anybody, did you hear about the guy who got the peekaboo virus? He had to go to the ICU. All right, well with that, I'm gonna let you all go. So thank you all so much for joining us this morning. I'm really happy to connect and continue these conversations. And I really, really love the idea of us like constantly connecting and learning more about each other. And I think it'll just kind of strengthen all of our work. So again, your contributions are invaluable. So thank you all. And I hope you have a really beautiful day.